OSIWA.org. WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. First, our top stories. ECOWAS defense chiefs reject corruption allegations in Guinea-Bissau. Nigerian government evacuates second batch of citizens from South Africa following delays in flight arrangements.
I think that when you see your citizens being denigrated, being insulted, first and foremost, beyond summoning the ambassadors, we want to see some kind of diplomatic actions.
Senegal's Agency Against Fraud and Corruption summons top officials over failure to declare their assets. And World Touch Organization raises concerns over Niger's withdrawal from the ICC.
If the decision of getting away from the ICC is to protect themselves as authorities, then all the non-state armed groups will also be exempted from judicial proceedings.
Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. The ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff have rejected allegations of corruption involving a delegation of the regional organization during an official mission to Guinea-Bissau. The claims have circulated in recent days across some media outlets and social media platforms. In a statement, the regional military body firmly denied the allegations, while Guinea-Bissau's authorities have announced legal proceedings over the matter. More details with Abdullahi Hassan.
The ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff has rejected allegations of corruption involving members of a regional military delegation during an official visit to Guinea-Bissau earlier this month. In a statement issued in Freetown, Sierra Leone, the committee said no member of the delegation was approached, solicited, or involved in any act of corruption during the June 19-23 mission. It described the allegations widely circulated on social media and in some media outlets as false, baseless, and without factual foundation. Meanwhile, Guinea-Bissau's National Transitional Council has announced legal action against journalist Paula Borges, accusing her of spreading false information linked to the allegations. The ECOWAS delegation was in the country as part of the regional bloc stabilization support mission, holding consultations with authorities and stakeholders on security issues and implementation of its revised mandate. The visit took place against the backdrop of Guinea-Bissau's ongoing political transition following the military takeover of November 2025 after a disputed presidential election.
Abdullah Hassan with that report. In the meantime, the government of Burkina Faso has rejected a recent European Parliament resolution criticizing the country's freedoms and civic space. In a note verbal sent to the European Union delegation in Ouagadougou, authorities describe the resolution as unacceptable interference in its internal affairs. The resolution adopted on June 18 comes days after Burkinabe Foreign Minister Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré summoned the EU ambassador to Burkina Faso, Philippe Brochain, to express the government's dissatisfaction with the resolution. Sankli Janko reports.
According to Burkinabe authorities, the European Parliament failed to recognize the country's efforts in combating terrorism and restoring security amid ongoing challenges across the Sahel region. The government also argues that the security crisis in the region stems from the 2011 NATO intervention in Libya, which it says continues to have destabilizing effects across the Sahel. Ouagadougou highlights what it describes as the significant gains made by the defense and security forces and the volunteers for the defense of the homeland in the fight against terrorism and the reconquest of territory. While reaffirming its commitment to dialogue with the European Union, Burkina Faso insists that relations must be based on mutual respect and free from what it calls condescension and prejudgment. The government declared the European Parliament resolution null and void and vowed to continue its policies aimed at territorial reconquest, state reform, and the protection of national interests. European Union Ambassador Philippe Prochain said he had taken note of the concerns raised by the Burkinabe authorities and would convey them to the appropriate institutions of the European Union.
Sankli Janku found that report. Back here in Senegal, nearly 1,600 government officials failed to declare their asset until the deadline elapsed. The officials, including ministers, mayors, heads of public companies, public prosecutors, and investigating judges, had until January 31 to declare their assets. The National Office for the Fight Against Fraud and Corruption has announced sanctions against non-compliant officials. Augustine Cooley reports.
Nearly 1,600 people, including ministers, mayors, heads of public companies, public prosecutors, and investigating judges, had until January 31 to declare their assets. However, to date, only 558 asset declarations have been filed, according to the National Office for the Fight Against Fraud and Corruption. These individuals now have until July 31 to comply. After this deadline, the National Office for the Fight Against Fraud and Corruption promises to publish the names of those who refuse to comply. The agency also announced the sanctions for non-compliant officials. The law stipulates a deduction of up to 1/4 of the monthly salary for public employees. For elected officials and members of the government, the risk is dismissal. It should be noted that the threshold for the declaration requirement has been lowered. It has been reduced from 1 billion to 500 million CFA francs for anyone managing a public budget. According to the Senegalese government, the mandatory asset declaration is a transparent exercise.
Augustine Cooley with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The crossover now to Liberia as Independent Information Commission is seeking an intervention from the Ministry of Justice over growing disputes regarding a government directive requiring all civil servants to sign a national non-disclosure agreement. The directive from the Civil Service Agency mandates that public employees sign the non-disclosure agreement or risk removal from the government payroll. The Information Commission argues that parts of the policy may conflict with the country's freedom of information law. WDL's Mon River correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The Civil Service Agency Director General Josiah Joker says the measure is intended to protect confidential information, strengthen discipline, and to promote accountability within the public sector. But the acting compliance director of the Independent Information Commission, Ama Boema Johnson, says the legal basis being relied upon by the CSA is inconsistent with Liberia's access to information framework.
We have reviewed the CSA Section 59 confidentiality clause, and we have found it to be conflictual, contravening, contradicting. We have asked the CSA to reform Section 59, that it cannot be used as the foundation.
The Commission maintains that existing laws, including the Freedom of Information Act and the Code of Conduct, already provide safeguards for confidential information such as medical records, personal banking details, and other sensitive data. As the debate over the policy intensifies, Johnson says the matter has now been brought to the attention of senior government officials for possible solution.
The Information Commissioner has briefed the Minister of Justice on this issue, the Minister of Information, the Chief of Office Staff, and the Minister of State. Let there be a judicial review. Let there be an opinion of the Minister of Justice on this matter.
The Civil Service Agency has defended the non-disclosure agreement as a governance measure aligned with international standards and aimed at protecting sensitive government information while promoting professionalism in public service. Attention is now turning to whether the authorities can bridge the divide between confidentiality requirements and the public's right to know. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Elsewhere in Nigeria, the federal government has evacuated another group of citizens from South Africa following days that had sparked protests among citizens awaiting their return. The 66 Nigerians evacuated from South Africa arrived at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos on Wednesday night, making them the second batch of evacuees brought home under the federal government's voluntary repatriation program. The evacuation follows protests by some Nigerians in South Africa who expressed frustration over delays in the departure of the second flight. The first batch of 258 Nigerians arrived in Lagos on June 11, bringing the total number of returnees so far to 324. Public Affairs analyst Chukwuma Okenwa says the federal government must be transparent about its evacuation plans, especially for Nigerians still waiting to return home.
First and foremost, because I think that the challenge actually has been that beyond, the diplomatic conversations of, we are going to handle this, or we don't have approval of this, we are going to review, beyond all of that, I think that if this time around, Nigeria government can actually show that such kind of things, which is a diplomatic spark on partnering nations like Nigeria, is actually undermining that relationship. If we can make it such that there are consequences, right? Consequences in the sense that when you see like your citizens being denigrated, being insulted, first and foremost, beyond summoning the ambassadors, we want to see like some kind of diplomatic actions.
Public Affairs analyst Chukwuma Okenwa. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Senate on Wednesday passed a constitutional amendment bill seeking to establish state police amid a rising wave of kidnapping, banditry, insurgency, and security threats. The bill was passed by two-thirds of the 109 senators barely a day after President Bola Tinubu transmitted the proposal to the upper chamber. But amid the development, there are also concerns. Correspondent Yechenu Sasiche reports.
Plus means yes, affirmation. Zero.
Presenting the general principles of the bill, Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin said the proposal is aimed at strengthening security and bringing policing closer to the people.
The report of the Committee on Constitutional Review on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria Alteration Bill 2026 SB 1055. I so move.
The bill seeks to establish a dual policing system that will allow state police services to operate alongside the Federal Police Service. Governor Ubasani of Kaduna, whose state is affected by banditry, described the passage as crucial to addressing insecurity at the grassroots.
As we are speaking, many states in Nigeria have established vigilance services. But do you know why they are not effective? It's simply because the Constitution prohibits them from holding light arms. They can only use firm action, meaning when you send them to go and protect the lives and properties of the people, you are sending them to death. Tell most of the people that are worried about the abuse, let's try it. There's room for amendments.
The bill provides for state governors to appoint commissioners of police, subject to confirmation by the state houses of assembly. It also proposes safeguards against the use of state police to harass political opponents, journalists, activists, and other citizens. Concerns already highlighted by several rights groups, including Amnesty International. Fears remain over possible political interference, funding, and coordination between federal and state security agencies. The legislation will, in the meantime, be transmitted to the 36 state houses of assembly, where it must receive the approval of at least two-thirds before it can return to the National Assembly and be forwarded to the President for assent. For WADR, Yechenu Sasiche in Abuja.
Let's turn our attention to Côte d'Ivoire, where debate is heating up over proposed reforms to establish the new electoral commission following the dissolution of the existing institution. The new structure presented by Prime Minister Robert Boguer Mambe has drawn mixed reactions. While the ruling RHDP party welcomes it as a boost to electoral transparency, the opposition, PPACI, condemns it as a unilateral move and warns it could amount to an attempt to control the electoral process. Usman Umar completes the story.
Meeting in an extraordinary session on June 23rd, the Secretariat of the RHDP welcomed what it described as a historic reform. The ruling party says the initiative reflects President Alassane Ouattara's commitment to equipping Côte d'Ivoire with a modern, credible and transparent electoral system. The RHDP believes the new structure of the Independent Electoral Commission will strengthen public trust and consolidate the democratic process. It is calling on all political actors to support the reform. However, the opposition PPACI does not share this view. Reacting to its absence from the presentation of the proposal, party official Fabrice Lago condemned what he considered a lack of genuine consultation. He said the meeting amounted to a simple government briefing with no opportunity for meaningful dialogue with opposition representatives. For political analyst Nuruddin Oyeole, the PPACI would be better served by taking part in the discussion in order to help improve the electoral system and strengthen trust between political actors. Despite ongoing controversy over the new electoral system presented earlier this week by the Ivorian Prime Minister, the proposal is expected to be submitted to Parliament for adoption in the coming days.
Marcel Harrison Blair's report there in Abidjan and presented by Usman Umar. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS defense chiefs reject corruption allegations in Guinea-Bissau. Nigerian government evacuates second batch of citizens from South Africa following delays in flight arrangements. Senegal's agency against fraud and corruption summons top officials over failure to declare their assets. And World Touch Organization raises concerns over Niger's withdrawal from the ICC. That's on the other half of the news. And we do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We are streaming live on wadr.org and also on YouTube and Facebook. The World Organization Against Torture has reacted to Niger's decision to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Niamey has already formally notified the court, but the withdrawal will only take effect after 1 year. In the meantime, the OMCT is warning of possible human rights violations in the country. Isidore Ngwele is Senior Advisor for Africa at the World Organization Against Torture.
I think that's the principle of military power. No, it is to disregard democratic oversight from parliament, democratic oversight from judiciary, and even democratic oversight from the population and other civil society organizations. So we are deeply in that context where no other body can look at it and can get them accountable. But it's important to remind that the International Criminal Court is one of these courts that is not only looking at people holding power. Their mandate is to hold accountable every individual, no matter the position they hold in a situation, in a country or in a community that are committing grave human rights violations. So that means, for example, that it's if the decision of getting away from the ICC is to protect themselves as authorities, then let also those who are not authorities, those who are criminals, to be unpunished. All the criminals, the terrorists, and all the non-state arms groups that are operating and that are killing will also be exempted from judicial proceedings because the country has decided to remove itself from the authority of the ICC. So this is a double sword decision that maybe is a protection mechanism for the military authorities, but also it leaves space for all other criminals to be able to act in full impunity.
Isidore Ngwele, Senior Advisor for Africa at the World Organization Against Torture. Well, still in Niger, the United Nations has once again described the detention of Musa Changari as arbitrary and has called for the release of the human rights activist. In a 12-page report published 2 days ago, the organization urged the authorities in Niamey to respect international law. The UN's position has been welcomed by supporters of Musa Changari, who has been in prison since December 2024 on alleged terrorism-related charges. Maman Kakadouda is a member of the Alternative Espace Citoyen, an NGO which Changari serves as Secretary General.
We are fully in solidarity with this press release, especially since these are globally recognized organizations in the field of defending and protecting human rights defenders. We truly welcome this statement, which calls on the authorities to take all necessary measures to secure the release of human rights defender. He is someone who is very strong in spirit and shows no sign of weakness whatsoever. He is a very calm and composed person. That being said, he has a wife, children, parents, friends, and acquaintances behind him. It is more for them that we are concerned. But I believe that regarding Musa Changari, we have no doubts about him personally.
Maman Kakatuda is a member of the NGO Alternative Espace Citoyen in Niger. In the meantime, Ghana's Narcotic Control Commission has arrested the alleged ringleader of a drug trafficking network linked to the seizure of about 320 kilograms of methamphetamine. Concealed in a charcoal shipment, the drug departed from Ghana and was intercepted in Australia. From Accra, Nadi Detete reports.
The Narcotics Control Commission, NACOG, has described the arrest as a major breakthrough in investigations launched after Australian authorities announced on June 19 that it had intercepted the consignment valued at nearly 300 million Australian dollars before it could reach the country's illicit drug market. According to NACOG, the suspect was arrested following a 3-month intelligence-led operation involving the Commission and other national security agencies. Director of Public Affairs and International Relations at NACOG, PNCO Francis Opoku-Amoah, says the Commission is working closely with local and international partners to identify and arrest everyone connected to the trafficking network.
The investigation is ongoing. It is likely that more arrests could follow this very first arrest that was made.
Meanwhile, NACOG has destroyed more than 9.6 tons of seized narcotic drugs under a court-approved process. The Commission says it is also intensifying public education campaigns to discourage drug abuse, particularly among young people, while calling on the media to support the fight against narcotics through sustained public awareness. For WADR, Nadede Tete, Accra.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview focuses on Nigeria, where conversations are ongoing regarding the passage of a Constitution Amendment Bill seeking to establish state police. Major concerns are growing over possible political interference, funding, and coordination between federal police and state security agencies. Well, to help unpack these issues, Olamuyiwa Olani, a security analyst, joins us with his analysis.
Security reform process in Nigeria is deeper than just creating of state police. I think it's important for all of us to understand that security reform process will continue nonetheless. In fact, this is the time that the reform process means so much in terms of providing the needed safety for Nigerians. Our state government has now a big responsibility to ensure that their structure or whatever is created, the state police created, will do exactly what it's supposed to do and not be used as any tool against some perceived enemies within their states at the subnational and, of course, at the federal level.
Now, do you believe creating state police will significantly reduce insecurity, or are there deeper issues the government must address alongside?
I personally do not think that the cause of the insecurity that we have in the country is the police or the federal police or the concentration or centralization of the police structure. I don't think that's the reason why we have insecurity. So if we do not deal with some of the underlying factors that we have, this insecurity would continue. Will it have effect on it? Absolutely. We hope that the creation of state police would help address some challenges, but nonetheless, it's not in itself the final solution to all of the insecurity crisis that we have, because we know that some of the reasons, in fact, a critical reason for the security challenge or challenges that we have is a governance issue. And so if it is a governance issue, you cannot use the creation of a subnational police or state police to solve a governance, something that is really tied to socioeconomic realities. You cannot use the police to solve it.
So what safeguards should be put in place to prevent state governors from using state police for political purposes?
If we go by what we are seeing outside, I mean the alteration bill which has been passed, I think the fear should not really be about the states alone. We should also be afraid of the central or the center. What do I mean by that? In the alteration bill, which has just been passed, what we've seen is some level of safeguards that the bill has provided for. But these safeguards too has given undue power, unnecessary power to the federal government. And of course, these in itself can be a source of very disturbing, worrisome trouble in the near future. So for instance, the parameters for takeover, if it is seen that a particular state police is not willing or does not have the capability to contain a particular problem, the federal government or the federal police is expected to take over that state police. I think that's very dangerous. It's dangerous in the sense that the law, as it says, did not define what unwillingness is and did not define capability. At what point? What's the threshold? What's the measure? At what point does it become a problem? At what point does it become something that would enhance or that will force the federal police service to come to the aid of the members of that state? I think that in itself signals very serious trouble. While these are measures incorporated to help reduce the overreach of state governors, I think we are not also creating another overreach for the federal government or for the president when the president has the power or the federal government has the power to switch on or to switch off police structure at subnational level.
Olamayo Walani is a security analyst in Nigeria. All right, and this come World Cup update. Former Germany star Bastian Schweinsteiger is facing criticism after describing Cote d'Ivoire's style of play as wild and orthodox. During World Cup coverage on German television, the remarks have sparked backlash from fans and pundits who say they reinforce harmful stereotypes about African football. The controversy has also stirred wider debates, with former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp declining to comment when asked about the issue during a media interview. In the meantime, Morocco booked their place in the knockout stage after coming from behind twice to beat Haiti 4-2 in their final Group C match in Atlanta. The Atlas Lions recovered from an early own goal by Yassin Bunu, with Achrif Hakimi and Ismail Saibari bringing them level before second-half strikes from Soufiane Rahimi and Yassine Gassime sealed the win. Morocco will now face the winners of Group F next Monday in Montero, Mexico, in the round of 32. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudu for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a repeat broadcast of our opinion poll series, It's You Speaking. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.